Good morning. Welcome to Hobby Evolution. Where are we at? Episode 593, getting close to 600. Happy Friday. It's one of those weeks where I actually wish it was Thursday because I've got a busy weekend, a busy Saturday coming up, and I'm behind. Part of that was because I made a little side trip yesterday to a rummage sale about an hour and a half away, which I'll touch on today. We're going to talk eBay feedback as well. And I hit up a Walmart restock. I just happened as I drove into town, happened to stop at Walmart just to check in, and the vendor was there. So I'll share what I saw on the shelf yesterday afternoon. Wake and Break is with us. Good morning, rise and shine to you. Jenny, good morning. Rich is with us here for a short time before going off to my day. Car servicing may be broke by 10. Yeah, car service and gas. I actually, now normally, when gas is $3 a gallon, you don't really, I don't take into consideration. I mean, at the end of the year, I add up my mileage for taxes, but when I'm paying at the pump, it doesn't really factor into like a business purchase, at the moment. Like, okay, I spent X amount, and then I don't take the gas into consideration. Well, yesterday I did, because I bought some gas on the way home, and I hit the trip to see, wanted to calculate. I averaged 26 miles to the gallon. It's about a 200-mile trip, and it was 5.19 at the pump yesterday. Now, half of that I spent the way there. That was only $4.69 a gallon gas. So the first 100 miles, the second 100 miles was the expensive gas, the 5.19 in Milwaukee. So about $40. I spent about $40 in gas driving to this rummage sales, which was almost how it was nearly what I spent, was 2/3 of what I spent. Ended up spending $65, and then a tack on another 40 in gas. But I'll make a profit when it's all said and done. So yeah, I can feel you, Rich. Safe at home. Ed, what is up? Good morning to you. Terry is with us. Good morning. Victor, good morning. Gas reaching $6 in Chicago. Yeah, I was shocked at the 5.19 price in Milwaukee yesterday. It's still in the fours here in Madison. It's creeping closer and closer to 5. Michael Hill, good morning to you. David is with us from the East Coast. What is up? Jenny says 200-mile trip. What target did you go to? No targets. It was a rummage sale in Milwaukee. TD Sports Cards, what is up? Dan Quesadillas, good morning to you. Happy Friday. So I made a trip to Milwaukee yesterday. And it was one of those. This is the perk of being self-employed, working from home. At the drop of a hat, I can see something online and spring to action. And that's what I did yesterday morning. Unfortunately, I had a tax call at 10:30, and I saw a post in a Facebook group about this rummage sale. And I'm like, dang, I have to wait till after my phone call. Fortunately, it was a fairly short call, so I was able to get on the road before 11. So what I saw was in a Facebook group, a rummage sale over in actually in Oak Creek, and not too far from the card show at the Salvation Army in Oak Creek that Tony Gordon puts on. So actually just probably a mile away, 2 miles away maybe. Anyway, I saw this post, and had a lot of wrestling stuff, and even in his ad on the Facebook post mentioned AWA Wrestling, which if you're not familiar with wrestling, AWA back in the territory days was the pro wrestling territory for the Midwest here in Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, Iowa. So and it was a bit, I mean, that is where Hulk Hogan started. Hulk Hogan got his name from Vern Gagne in the AWA. So AWA has big history and then it finally petered out in the late 80s. It was on ESPN if you watched wrestling in the 80s. AWA wrestling was on in ESPN in the 80s. So that piqued my interest because I'm a wrestling fan. I talk about wrestling, and I like obscure stuff. So it looked like there might be some, uncommon memorabilia, cards, etc. So I'm like, I'm not going to miss this opportunity. I liked what I saw in the photos. I saw a couple of price tags that seemed reasonable. I'm going to hit the road. So after my phone call, I hit the road to Oak Creek, Wisconsin, and pulled in. It was about an 8. It's in the subdivision. I think it's basically their, subdivision yard sales. We have like here on in our side of town, in Madison, each like subdivision has like a weekend where some are on the same weekend, but it's not. It's kind of similar to in a small town you have town-wide yard sales. That's what we call them in my hometown. But out in here we have like basically each subdivision kind of plans out. Okay, this weekend we're gonna have our subdivision-wide yard sale. So this was a subdivision-wide rummage sale, and so I pulled up, and I could tell. I think he had like a Miami Dolphins tent in his driveway. So I'm like, okay, there was like a foosball table sitting out in the driveway. So I'm like, okay, there's gonna be some good stuff here. So I walked in. All of the wrestling memorabilia, cards, and all that was inside the garage. So I went in there, checked over. There were some wrestling singles and showcases. I'm not too big on I know some of the bigger, the 82 All Stars set. The what's the roast beef, Rax roast beef has a set from I think 79. So I know some of the bigger sets, and of course 85 WWF. So I didn't see any of that stuff. It was a lot more current, and the prices seemed to be, right around market value, I would say. So I went in. There was what was really cool. What really piqued my interest was, those wrestling rings, like with the wrestling figures. He had like 3 AWA toy wrestling rings. I thought those were really cool. And then I saw the magazines, which the magazines were what I was interested in because I enjoy reading wrestling magazines, and then some of them there's decent resale value. If you buy low enough, you can sell at a decent rate. So I wanted to check those out. The first area I was in had some older stuff from the 70s. He had them priced right, 10, $15. That's about the market value. So unless I got a discount buying a whole bunch of them, wasn't, gonna really trip the meter, because sometimes it takes a long time to sell these as well. It's not like you can just buy them today and sell them tomorrow. So I passed on those. There was a box as I walked in. There was not aware wrestling fans read. So on the floor, as I walked in, there was a big cardboard box. Inside the box were what appeared to be complete sets. There was a bunch of 91 Impel WCW. He had $15 on those. Again, that's probably market rate. I'm trying to move singles. The second time around, they're not moving now. I did sell a decent amount several months ago. There was an 85 Topps WWF set, 87 Topps WWF. There was the 90 Classic in the actual, like, it's not a 3-ring binder, but just like a small book. That was really cool. That was only $30, and I'm actually kicking myself that I didn't buy that, because I think there's good value there. Then there were a couple others. There were some modern 2012 Heritage, 2014 Road to WrestleMania. Some of the prices seemed a little high. And there was Action Packed from 94 and 95 WWF. So it was one of those things where it's like, I didn't really want to cherry pick. It's like, I really want to offer on the whole box, but then there were some boxes that were, not really, in my mind, I don't think there's much there. So He had a lot of like Baron von Raschke, and the Crusher is from Milwaukee, so he had a ton of Crusher stuff. He had photos, just a lot of cool stuff. So in the back corner, there was more, which I didn't see too many. There wasn't much of this corner in the photos, and this is where I actually found the gold. These were where the WWF magazines were. Now, between 1995 and like 1997, WWF magazine started putting cards inside the magazines for subscribers only. So they're semi-rare, much like Sports Illustrated for kids. There are a few that are, pretty higher dollar. There's a Diesel rookie card in one, sells for about $20. Kane has a rookie card, as his former gimmick, Dr. Isaac Yankem, DDS, the evil dentist. Again, about a $15 card. What else? Triple H has a rookie card. Unfortunately, the Triple H magazine was not in there. So he had them in, and I don't have one near me, but he had them in basically like what I would call comic book sleeves. They have the light cardboard backing, and then they're like plastic, and then they were Scotch taped. Can we banish Scotch tape on everything? So Scotch tape on these are very difficult because it's just hard to like pull them off this particular plastic on these plastic sheets. So he had the magazine priced at $5 each. For the most, some were $3. So at $5, I'm like, the magazines themselves are worth the magazines themselves are worth $5. So I thought for sure these are non-subscriber copies, and there's not going to be or they are subscriber copies and the cards have already been taken out. So I looked, and sure enough, I could see the mailing label. There at one time was a mailing label on the cover. So I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to peel the tape off so I can open the magazine and see without damaging. And sure enough, cards were in there. So, and I knew 95 and 96, I actually had a subscription to WWF magazine back during this time. And I pulled the cards out. I was big into Nerd Alert. I was big into scrapbooking around this time, and I'm 12, 13 years old. I would cut out photos and the cards, and I would glue them into scrapbooks. So you didn't think that some of these cards would be valuable. Hey, that's why if you find scrapbook on the back of T206 cards, same. Yeah, you didn't think these were going to be valuable. And this is the 90s where we thought everything was going to be a collector's item. So I ended up finding like 16. So I found like 16. So that's what, 8. They were all $5 stickers. He gave them to me for $65. So basically $4 in issue. There were a bunch of other like 92, 93, 94 magazines, $3, $5. Which as I drove home, I'm thinking, dang it. I should have just bought, I should have just offered or asked how much he would sell all the WWF magazines for. I may have missed an issue or two that had cards in it. I don't think I missed any with like the good cards from 95 because I knew all of those issues. But I didn't realize they made them into 1997, and I don't think I had a subscription by then. So I did message him, and so I, when I saw him, he was in a lawn chair in his front yard, and I asked if he was the one that made it. He was. So we got to talking. I told him I drove over from Madison. He's like, wow, was it worth the drive? And I said, yeah. So I messaged him on Facebook last night, and I'm like, hey, I might be interested in buying all the cards, the sets, and the WWF magazine. So he was going to go through, tally it up and see what type of discount. And so maybe I'll end up buying some more stuff. But there is a video that I did from the parking lot of a Shell gas station yesterday afternoon. So if you want to see all of the cards, that video is on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to get to the chat before moving on. And we'll talk a little retail on my way back home. Let's see. Jenny says, speaking of card shows, aren't you doing one this weekend? I am curious how the turnout will be. And is rain predicted for that area this weekend? Because that will up attendance. Yes, I'm doing the Northern Illinois Card Show in Rockford tomorrow. I think attendance will be, I'm not anticipating good attendance. And when I say good, I'm comparing good from, January, February, March, April shows. I think May, June, July are going to be down. So, and I think that's going to be across the board for all shows. So I think it's going to be down. I don't think it's going to rain tomorrow. I'm not sure what the forecast. I was actually looking because I'm going to a party right after the card show, and so it's like, well, what am I gonna? Is it gonna be shorts? Is it gonna be? I wore basically like a shirt like this yesterday, and it ended up being freaking 80 degrees, which my phone said it was gonna be 70. So here in Madison, we're expecting a 40% chance of rain tomorrow. Let's see if it's any different in Rockford. It could be. Let's see, where are we at here? Do I have Rockford? Beloit's close enough. No rain in Beloit. Beloit's just down the road, so doesn't look like it's going to rain tomorrow, so that can keep some people away. Ed says gas hit $5 on average in Rhode Island. You got to stop at a garage sale if you see a foosball. Table note taken. Was not aware wrestling fans read. Good morning. This is much more enjoyable from where I'm sitting. Herman, sitting on the beach. Let's see. Wow, you found a wrestling collector's mecca. Don't pee in the pool, Herman. It attracts sharks. Hope to see some sharks today from the dive trip. You're a committed Hobby Evolution fan when you're on vacation at the ocean and tuning in daily. Love it, Herman. Love it. Herman gets the star of the day. How much more valuable are the cards if they are left in the magazine? And is it worth the difference as shipping is more if shipping a magazine? It's all in all, you're probably going to lose out selling the magazine as a whole. It's one of those things where breaking up is always you're always going to get more out of breaking up a lot as opposed to, for the most part, as opposed to keeping it whole. And I say for the most part. But it may take you a lot longer to get that value. So, I could make a quick buck and sell the magazines. I got, actually, what's the math? Because we're going to say I have $100 into this because of the gas. So 100 divided by 16. So I've got basically $6.25 into the magazine. So if I can sell a couple of them for $40, $50, yeah, that's a great return, as opposed to, maybe the $40 magazine, I can break it up and sell the contents for $75. But I may be able to make $40 in the next few days, whereas it would take me 6 months to realize the 75. So it's all kind of what do I want? How do I want to handle it? I'm likely going to just break them out and sell as singles. Scrapbooking is a dislikable offense. Herman says, just sitting here enjoying the beach view, family sleeping in after yesterday. Zach says, you've come a long way, scrapbooking to stalking your neighbor's trash, right? TD says you should have just made an offer on the whole collection. I know it was one of those things where I thought about it, and then it's like, no, I don't want to. And then I started doing the video, and it's like, oh, I should probably go back and just double check. And then it's like, no, I'm just going to go home. And then you get home and you're thinking about it more. See, that indecisiveness can kill you. But I had all of this going on, and I'm sitting at stoplights, like comping, and a lot of the stuff comped out. So I don't know if there would have been value in some of this wrestling, especially magazines can take a really long time to move. So I don't want to, drop a bunch of money and just be sitting on that. inventory for a long period of time. But I know at $65 for the magazines that I did buy, I know that I can realize and turn a profit fairly quickly. I saw the Chicago Spectacular is next weekend. That will be interesting to see turnout with gas at $6 a gallon. I know a shop guy from North Dakota goes to Chicago, or he did. I think that's going to be a brutal show. It's mainly targeted for autograph collectors. The show itself, now the November and March shows are typically bigger. The November is kind of their biggie. But this show is only like 200 tables. So I think it's going to be a week. I'm not even going to, I have no interest in going down, because usually the vendors I buy from, I can get them at local shows and not spend $15 to get in and $15 to park. So it's just, it's not as spectacular as it used to be. Does anyone feel claustrophobic with that attacking shelf of bows? Let's see. He's clusterphobic. You better hope no Madison police watch your show. You always admit to sitting at stoplights and using eBay. But I'm not driving. I don't text and drive. I'm not on my phone when I'm driving. I'm at a stoplight. I imagine your wife walking in on you playing with your dolls in your wrestling ring in the middle of the afternoon, or sitting on the floor sorting baseball cards. So on my trip back from the rummage sale, I stopped at Walmart right on the way. Sometimes it's stocked on Thursdays, sometimes it's stocked on Fridays. Lately it's been on Friday mornings, or maybe Thursday nights. So I don't know this particular vendor. I know the Target, the Excel rep, super nice guy, really friendly. Not quite the case with the Walmart vendor. I walked up, and maybe it's because I'm more excited to see her than she is excited to see people wanting to buy the cards. And I get it from, the retail bonanza of 2021. So walked up, and as soon as I greeted her and she was still kind of in the middle of stocking the shelf, I knew I had that sense that I probably shouldn't ask any questions and just let her go about her job. So I just kind of, once I got the cold stare, I realized I'm going to get out of here for a few minutes and let her finish. So I kind of gave it a once over, didn't see much, and, kind of walked around the store, did a couple laps, went back. She was finishing up. There was one lonely blaster of Bowman on the shelf. So I grabbed that. There were, 5 or 6 Bowman U football blasters. I'm a big fan, so I bought 2 of those just to add to my collection. And so that's all I left with. There was a lot of stuff, just not much that I was really interested in buying. So I did open the Bowman blaster last night, and I think it's fair to say, if there's a dinged up, beat up box, you buy it. And if there's only one on the shelf, you buy it. It's like good luck. And my Bowman blaster had a first Bowman color. It was a paper of a Red Sox player. But hey, it had a color. So I was happy with that. John says, do you suppose distributors have high personnel turnover, or is it a good job to have? I think it must be a good job, because at least the reps that do the cards in my area have been doing it for, a while. I think this, and I don't know this particular rep, but I think she's been doing it through all this craziness. And like my Target, my Target rep, the Target rep in our area for Excel, I mean, shoot, he's been the guy for the entire time I've lived here, because that's kind of how I really got back big into the hobby in 2014. I was buying, I would just go on, I was new to town. So Friday nights I'd go to Target, buy a few blaster boxes, a frozen pizza, and a 6-pack of beer. And that was my Friday night entertainment after work, when I, the first first couple months I moved to town. And he was the vendor then in 2014. So here we are 8 years later. So I think I don't think there's much turnover. But I think it's with anything there, there probably are some areas, regions that do experience that. But here it's not. Here I think all the vendors in our area have been with it for a while. Jenny says the vendors had some bad experiences the past 2 years. Now they have a bad taste about us buyers. Absolutely. Goes back to yesterday's convo about eBay buyers getting a bad taste of the platform. Yeah, definitely. Cliff, what is up? Good morning to you. TD says, did you see that Fanatics is partnering with the NCAA and over 150 plus college teams to produce college sports cards? No, I did not. And that'll be interesting to see how that goes, because Panini has the NCAA license. And NIL and NCAA cannot be on basically the same card. So that's why you haven't seen any Panini licensed current cards, because they can't have, you can't have a who's a current player, Graham Mertz at Wisconsin. So I haven't read that article, so I'll have to read that article. But yeah, that's interesting. Zach says, liar, 6-pack cards, pizza, and paste for scrapbooking those cards. Don't bury the lead. Rich says, by the way, 6 likes and 26 people. That's 23%. Thank you, Rich. Hit that like button. Fanatics sucks. LOL. They just do product drops to get people's emails. 10 per day emails I get now, and I didn't even win 1 box of Prism. Uncle Rich ain't wrong. Jenny, that's one of the secrets of how to grow the hobby. That is very true. Collect those emails. That is very true. I think 10 per day is excessive. I hope companies aren't doing that, but collecting those emails and addresses is an excellent way to grow the hobby and grow your marketplace. So let's talk eBay and feedback. And so this was there were actually this tweet. This tweet was tweeted out the same day as the tweet that I was referencing yesterday. So we talked eBay yesterday regarding how to be a better eBay seller. So another tweet, and I just I wanted to leave this on its own because I think we can do a whole show on eBay feedback. And so the tweet is from a user named Nicole. She's a cheesehead because she has a cheese block of cheese in her name, and her hashtag is GoPackGo. So maybe she's from Wisconsin. So Nicole's tweet was, guy is mad because I left him a negative review after not receiving my card. Am I wrong for this? Could have been the post office, but a response on the 25th could have avoided the negative review. And she actually posts the screenshot. So she sent a message on May 25th. Okay. And she said, hey, I see the tracking number, but doesn't seem like it's been updated. Just wondering if you happen to know the status of this. Thanks in advance. That was on May 25th. And then there was no response by the seller until June. I don't know what day. It doesn't say. It just says today. So I don't see any dates. But I think it was at least a week later. Because she had resorted to leaving a negative feedback. The seller then responds, why are you leaving me a negative? It's the post office. I'll end up refunding the card and I will lose the card in the mail. I can't control the Memphis PO. So that was the seller's response. So the tracking shows it was the seller created the label on May 18th. But there's not, and this is standard. This is again, standard envelope, which the tracking sucks on this. So the first ping on tracking was May 26th, which was what? Was that a day after her message? Yeah. So she sent the message on May 25th And then all of a sudden we get a ping on May 26th. So I'm wondering if this seller just created the label and just set it aside and didn't actually drop it off at the post office until he gets that message, and then he puts it in the mail. So there was no updates to the tracking. And then she shows the negative feedback that she left. I purchased item on May 17th, and the tracking number was provided on May 18th. Expected delivery date was before May 27th. On June 2nd, I attempted to contact the seller because the tracking information hadn't updated since May 18th. I opened a case with eBay the same day. I contacted eBay. Seller never responded. Currently working with eBay to get a refund. Not a lot of money, but would have liked to have something I paid for. So this is one of those where I can understand both the buyer and the seller on this particular instance, because only one message was sent. And I get a ton of emails and messages, and sometimes I miss messages. And so I can understand where that could happen, where if only one message was sent, it gets lost and the seller doesn't see it. All of a sudden, it's like I get a negative feedback, and it's like, oh crap. So from that standpoint, I can understand. But every situation is different. This particular situation, it seems a little, what was the term John used yesterday in the chat? Janky. Seems a little janky that there was we saw movement in the tracking the day after she sends that original message. It all goes back to yesterday's topic. Communicate. Communication is key. Now, and so this is that particular, and I'm going to move on to another scenario. So that we'll move on from that one. But in some instances, communication is key, where I send off and I've received negative feedbacks for a customer doesn't receive a card, but also doesn't reach out to me either. And it's like, we can get this handled. Like, I'm sorry you didn't get your card. And it does suck that, it is a seller's responsibility to see through that items get delivered. However, it's literally out of a seller's control once it gets shipped out and it's in the hands of the USPS or another shipping entity. So communication is key. If you don't receive your card, reach out to the seller. And I always say follow up. And I referenced my previous job yesterday. I'll do it again today because that's the key. I worked in sales, and many times, how many, if you worked in sales, how many deals actually get done on the first phone call or first email or first meeting? Not too many. You have to sometimes follow up is key. And in sales, sometimes it may be 10 or 20 calls before you make that sale. So, or get an answer. If you're cold calling, you're getting somebody on the phone once out of 100 calls. So following up is key. And it's like, I would deal with, one thing that I didn't like about my previous job was there was like a position for every step of the transaction. And so, it's my client, but 4 out of 5 parts of the transaction are out of my control, like setting an appointment. So the person who sets the appointment, it's like the load is now loaded onto a trailer and we don't have a delivery appointment. And it's going to be, it's supposed to be the truck driver is expecting to deliver this tomorrow morning, but we don't have a set delivery appointment. What if this place that he's delivering to doesn't have any appointments left? And so I ask my scheduler, hey, what's the status on this? Well, I left a voicemail 2 days ago. Did you follow up? No. Can you please follow up? So following up is key. So I'm going to get to the chat real quick. Missing a lot of chat. Where are we at? Rich says, I almost always correct. The only person who will disagree is the missus. Jenny's getting emails about buying this for Father's Day. Buy these clothes. Only opinion that counts is Charlie's, says John. Jenny says she also opened a case beginning in June after no May 25th response. The cheesehead doesn't know how things work. It seems it was June 8th when she left feedback, and then 2 hours later got the response. Charlie's, you know how she becomes, well, I'm on the air. DR says, good morning. What is up, DR? What's up, Dan? Just signed on, and I am the 11th like. Do you remember when we legally had to give 30 days for any shipment? I don't remember that, but I'm sure I was. If it was on eBay, I was my first eBay. I started selling in '98, so I'm sure that was a thing back then. But I don't really recall some of the inner workings. Let's see. I think that law still exists. Everyone needs more patience. That was a great song. Buyers have tons of patience. They just want communication. She opened a case. There was more than one message sent. The buyer doesn't understand how the USPS is horrible with tracking. I will say, in going back to this particular user, the feedback score is low. Her feedback score is like 30 something. And that's typically when I run into feedback issues, it's usually in this. I don't want to sound like I'm victim blaming here, but a lot of times when I have issues with feedback, it's on less than 100, less than 50 accounts. Let's see. I personally think that eBay should eliminate the percentage of feedback and just show the raw scores. Okay, so I'm gonna stop on the chat there, and I'm gonna touch on this. I am hot and cold on eBay feedback. So feedback scores used to be much more important than what they are now in terms of how eBay handled your seller's performance and all that. Now it has like little effect. And if you talk to somebody with eBay, if you're trying to get a feedback removed or have any issues with feedback, like the first thing they tell you is, well, it doesn't hurt your seller's rating. It's like, I don't care if it hurts my seller rating within your algorithm. This is like a blatant falsity. Like somebody mentioned in the chat yesterday and I've had this happen too. Like it was probably a copy or a default from the previous feedback, but it gets onto your feedback and it's a negative that I think it was somebody sent the wrong keys. Like I sent these cards. I did not send him the wrong cards. And it's basically, it comes down to a he said, she said. And eBay will say, well, it doesn't matter. It's like, well, it does matter. And I'm kind of, the more volume you do, it matters less. Like now that my feedback score is growing and growing and growing, it's like sometimes you're going to get, it's a numbers game. You're going to run into potentially bad buyers. You're going to run into an instance. And here's how I see it. And actually an eBay rep explained this in this way, and it really stuck with me. And this was several years ago. And it's kind of likened it to an online rating, whether it's on Google or Yelp or Amazon. And it's like, if you have a poor experience, if you have a negative experience with a transaction, you're just leaving the negative feedback as long as it's warranted. If it's like not true, or if you copied and pasted the wrong feedback, that is different. But if it's legit, I have an instance where this is really strange, and I'm like pulling my hair out, which I need to get a haircut today. I'm pulling my hair out because my football cards are alphabetized for my eBay store inventory. And about a week ago, I ran into I think it was a Kyle Long card that sold. And I pull out my L's. And this is a big L. There's no Kyle Long card. Well, son of a. And I sold a David Lee 1973 Topps football card. I go through my L's, and I've got a stack of L's. And that stack is my stack of L's is growing now because there's no David Lee card. Son of a. So if you order a card, you pay for a card, and the seller has to cancel your order and refund your money, that's a negative experience. So I get it. It's my fault. I lost the card. It's somewhere. I have that card. I have those cards somewhere. I just have no idea where they're at. But that's a negative experience. If you go and you see a card that you want to, hey, this David Lee 1973 Topps is going to be the last card I need to finish my 1973 Topps set, and I get a great price on it. And now a few days later, I have to reach out to the seller and I respond, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to locate this card. And then say, I'll send it when I can. When I find it, here's a refund. And now you're bummed because that was going to be the card you were expecting to finish that set. That's a negative experience. If they want to leave me a negative feedback, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take the L. So I get it. I get it. And I know some people get offended by the negative feedbacks. And sometimes I do if it's not warranted. But in this case, if that buyer of the David Lee 1973 Topps football card, he gets a refund, not his card, it's like, why should I buy from it? What if he loses the next card I want to buy? I get it. That's bad. That's bad on me. But it happens. And the more and more volume you do, it's going to happen more often. So it's just, it's a part of doing business. And sometimes, you're not going to, and that's why I don't get annoyed, but it's like people brag about their perfect 100% ratings. And I know right off the bat, if they're proud of their 100% ratings, they've probably done few transactions. If you've done 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, your feedback scores are up there in the thousands, you've likely run into a negative or a neutral because it's just a numbers game. And that's just the way it is. So that's my take on DRs eliminating the percentage on feedback. And sometimes you'll look and talking about percentage, it's like somebody had like a 95. I'm like, ooh, 95%. I'm not going to buy from them. So then you look into it and it's like they only have like 18 transactions and one was a negative. And then you read the negative. What's this all about? Sometimes if it's something that I really want and I want to buy, but it's like, I don't know, this seller only has 18 feedback and he's got a negative. We'll look into the negative and then look into the person who left the negative and look at the other feedback they've left. And there may be, it may not be that seller that has 95%. It may be a bad buyer of his. Let's see. Rich says, I had someone drop off 20,000 cards for COMC this week, 5 years after we started talking about COMC. Mike Summer is still on me about COMC. I'm still dragging my feet. I'm not pulling the trigger. It's just that 50-cent insertion fee kills me. I'm just going to put them on eBay. Paige and Dina Bean, what is up? Good morning to you. Let's see. Where are we at? Jenny says totally. And that's a downfall of sellers that assume buyers use standard envelopes the way we do. Let's see. Good luck today, Rich. Let's see. Zach says that label created situation was the exact scenario I mentioned yesterday in the chat. They didn't mail it, guaranteed. I think that's likely what happened. It wasn't. It was probably created, just not mailed. Dan says, interesting perspective from my 200 buy it now switched over to auction the day the auctions were listed. I had a super high sales day of buy it now cards, and the day the auction closed, high sales. Very nice. Let's see. TD Sports Card says, since I've started using the 53-cent eBay label option last summer, I've only had one that didn't make it. We both kept track on it for a few weeks. About 25 days in, I just refunded the guy back in February. I've had several issues, and they've actually popped up more here recently in the last few weeks. But it's still percentage-wise, volume-wise, it seems high, but when you look at the number of transactions that I send out, It's actually a very low percentage. Ken, what is up? Welcome to the live chat. Figured since I'm up, I'd join. Neighbors started mowing before 6:45 and fired up the leaf blower before 7. Now, I'm an early bird, but that's just wrong. Like, that wouldn't bother me because I wake up early. But I think that's operating any loud machinery, mowing the lawn before 7 a.m. That's just not right. Mike, this baseball card life, good morning to you. After I give a great deal to an eBay buyer, is it wrong to get extra annoyed with that buyer messaging me multiple times about shipping status, details of the card? I always ship within 3 business days. Yeah, you can get annoyed. Absolutely. I get annoyed. And I had a situation where it sucks. The buyer reached out and they're seeing a player, and I have 3 or 4 days handling time, and it still falls within this window. And they're like, we're seeing this player on like June 14th. Is it going to get here? And I can't guarantee that. It's going to be shipped out tomorrow, which is within my handling time, but I can't guarantee it's going to get there in 3 or 4 days. In fact, I would probably say it's not going to get there. And they're bummed out, but that's something that before you make a purchase, if you need a card by a certain date, now, even if they would have reached out, today's what, June 10th, if they would have reached out on June 6th or June 7th and said, hey, I need this by June 14th, I'm like, I don't know if it's going to get there. It's likely, I would err on the side of it's probably not, because I don't want to say yes. That also comes from a background in transportation. Like, you don't guarantee anything because things happen. So that's, even if they would have reached out before they bought, I would have probably said, it's not going to get there. So yeah. And just a sidebar, like, one of the annoyances is somebody buying a card and then after they pay for it, ask about the condition. Well, are there any scratches on the card? Well, probably. I think there's a scratch on every card. It's not a PSA 10. Probably. It could be, I guess. I don't know. So that's a sidebar. eBay doesn't really do a good job of communicating to new people how negative feedback is. And I think that's part of eBay. It's to eBay, it's not negative, because eBay's just the platform they're providing to consumers to buy products from sellers. They're just a middleman. So to them, and that's why they've basically downgraded the impact of negative feedback on sellers. Now, is there an impact in the grand scheme? Sure. I bet there's buyers out there that will see negative feedback on somebody's score and say, I'm not buying from them because they've got 1, 2, 5, 7, 13 negative feedbacks in the last 12 months. But for eBay, they say, well, it doesn't reflect negatively on our platform. So I understand why they don't really put emphasis on feedback, because it's not anything that they put in their algorithm. Let's see. Where are we at? Jenny says, I think for years, eBay sports cards was a small group of hobby collectors and people were afraid to leave negative or neutral. Now the hobby expanded and buyers are leaving feedback on true experience. I just think it's a case of, I think it's kind of opposite to that. Well, I would agree, because I think in the past, sports cards on eBay was smaller, and now it's grown. The hobby has grown immensely in the past 3 years. Well, even going back 5 years, there's just more and more people on the platform. And with more and more people, you're going to have, it's just like feedback in general. If you have 100 feedback or 500 feedback or even 1,000 feedback, it's likely you don't have any negatives. But if you have 5,000 feedback, 10,000 feedback, 20,000 feedback, you likely have multiple negatives. It's just a numbers game. So I just think that, and I think we're in the, I think it's the way things have changed, and now with look at how toxic social media can be, and we get behind our keyboards and we just write out what we think, whether it's, you know, you get something in the mail that you don't expect, and you know, you may be upset, but I think in today's toxic social media age, we're just more negative. I just think human behavior skews negative in this social media climate we're in. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Let's see. Pepino Man, what is up? I've never been on eBay. Wow. That is impressive. Cliff, that's an ice cream, Pepino Man. Let's see. Set my alarm for 5 a.m. for this must-watch content. Thank you, John. TD Sports Cards, early mowing mowers. Shake my head. I bet Ken lost his mind. Let's see. Imagine having to order cards through the back of a magazine and then waiting, right? You'll get your cards in 6 to 8 weeks. Bo looks like Kid and Play. I need a haircut. My X-ray specs never showed up. Stupid comic books. I buy from everyone. I also buy a grill that had an online review, 3 of 5 stars. So I'm just a risk taker. Super Collect 22. Welcome to the chat. I like to read the negative feedback to decide. Sometimes negative feedback is left because the delivery took forever, which is not always the seller's fault. Absolutely. And I've always been transparent with my feedbacks. I've had 7 in the last 12 months, but I've also had about 10,000 positives in that same time period. And so some of my negative feedbacks are somebody let's see. The last negative feedback I received was no top loader and no team bag. And my response is I said shipped in a penny sleeve and team bag. It was actually shipped in a penny sleeve and card saver. And the buyer received the card in the stated condition. I reached out. I'm like, hey, was the card damaged? No response. And that was actually from somebody with over 500 feedback. So that's kind of rare. Let's see. This one. Here's a legit negative feedback. Listing showed a very nice centered card, but I was sent an off-centered card. That was a case where somebody in a recent show asked me, you have multiple cards. This is one of the reasons why I have to be a little more careful when I do quantity listings. This wasn't a quantity listing. I actually had, I think, duplicates of whatever card this was, and off centering in the 70s was a big issue. And I sent him the wrong card. I had assumed, what's assuming do? And it made an ass out of me because I assumed it was the only 1971 whoever it was, and I sent a more off-centered card than what was listed. So that's legit. That's negative feedback worthy, and I'm going to take it. That's okay. It was a negative experience for him, and I made the mistake. I'm okay with that negative. Let's see. I had another one. Card was damaged because it wasn't in a top loader. Again, I ship in penny sleeve and card savers. This person never reached out to me. When I responded to his feedback, I said, hey, did you have an issue? And no response. And this person had 31 feedback, and that's kind of common. Under 100 feedback when you get negatives. This guy sent me a negative, never received card, no communication. No communication on his part. I didn't know he never received it. I'm not a mind reader. If you don't receive a card, let me know and we'll take care of it. So if you don't receive a card, communicate. I think his no communication part was self-directed. No communication because I didn't tell the seller I never received the card. Okay, moving on. Where are we at? John says feedback is moving towards grading, going out of the way to find some flaws. That's a good point. Cliff says, how much of this negative feedback is entitled a-hole just getting mad over nothing? Probably 90%, 9 out of 10. Straight execution. What is up? Long time no chat. How do you handle someone who ships cards with Scotch tape? I don't leave negative feedback, but not as great an experience. So here's the thing. I hate Scotch tape, but if I receive, I'm not buying the top loader. I'm not buying the supplies. If I receive the card in the stated condition, despite Scotch tape, it's fine. It's not a negative experience for me. I don't like Scotch tape, but again, I'm buying the card. Now, if I get a card and they've put shipping, because I've had this happen where they use this freaking tape and it's all over the top loader, and I have to like perform surgery to get to my card, that's a more negative experience. I'm not going to leave a negative feedback over it. I'll probably just not leave any feedback and just stop doing business with that seller. That's what I'm going to do. Now, if I receive a card damaged, if the Scotch tape, left some paper loss on the top, I'm going to reach out. First, I'm going to communicate with the seller and say, hey, this was damaged. And if we don't come to if they say, well, screw off, then I'm going to leave a negative feedback. But if they're apologetic, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm going to change my ways, I'm going to stop using Scotch tape, well, then I'm going to be okay with it. And it's just all, it's all depending on, I think feedback. I mean, you can have a negative experience, but if you communicate and you feel like you've been, righted, the wrong has been righted, I think it can turn into a positive experience. So but every situation is different. Every buyer is different. Every seller is different. We take things, some people are just very angry at receiving Scotch tape on their top loaders. I really don't care as long as it's not like it doesn't impede me getting the card. Now, what I'm very annoyed with is the shipping tape. And I've had packages come where it's just like a top loader is completely wrapped. And it's like, what the hell are you doing? Why would you even think this is a good idea? So that's annoying. And I'm not going to leave a negative, though. I'm just going to stop doing business with that person. That goes back to yesterday's conversation. I think you can learn a lot, like just, what's a best practice to shipping a card, and wrapping a top loader in masking tape or shipping tape is not a best practice. Chad Shipper is with us. What is up? Good morning. Finally can catch a live episode for the first time. That is awesome. Welcome to the chat. Cooter says, I'm getting blown up by a zero feedback buyer from China for more detailed photos on an item. I don't ship outside the US. I wonder what she is up to. Do you have global shipping set up? I like global shipping because it does open my sales up internationally, but I don't have to go through the customs paperwork. eBay handles that. I ship it to Kentucky. Now, it does suck for a buyer in another country because they're paying like a crazy amount for shipping because they're using that service. Let's see. And I would just block if you're getting blown up and a zero feedback, a lot of red flags there. I just block that user. Let's see. John says, where are we at? Is leaving negative feedback for a seller who's creating content instead of shipping your item a legitimate gripe? Yes. If it's delayed, does anyone know why eBay won't generate a label for cards to ship to Puerto Rico? So that is interesting. And it's not all areas of Puerto Rico. I come across about 50% of my shipments. Standard envelope is not you can't use standard envelope. So I just put a stamp on it. But yes, that's about 50% of my shipments to Puerto Rico are not eligible for standard envelope. And it's probably just because there's not a sorting facility with the scanner. So it will never get scanned at a destination facility in Puerto Rico. So that's my guess. I don't know that to be certain, but that's what I'm assuming. Again, we know what assuming does. Jenny says, when were card savers invented? Is this top loader thing older collectors returning and thinking everything is top? Card savers have been around for a long time. Card savers have been around probably as long as top loaders. I don't know what the top loader thing is, but it does seem to be a problem. Um, I think it's actually new collectors that want top loaders, not older collectors. I think it's a newer thing. Um, let's see. But I actually don't know that to be sure because I've used top loaders up until I don't know, 6, 8, 10 months ago. And then I started using card savers because um I actually think they're a better option for plain white envelopes to be quite honest with you. TD says, do you use blue tape your card savers also? I do not, and I haven't had any issues of cards slipping out of a card saver. But I do not. No. Cooter are using global shipping. This is why I don't leave buyers feedback until it's left for me. Did that triple logo man LeBron James sell at auction? I am not sure. I haven't been closely following that. I think it just went to auction though, right? Because I think it was just I saw some pictures of Ken Golden with it. So I'm not sure if it has even gone up yet. Cooter says, I don't think priority mail is available to Puerto Rico. I've been able to print other USPS labels. Yeah, I know you can do first class for sure. And then standard envelope is 50-50. Super Collect says, I also think it's bad on sellers that respond to negative feedback in an angry fashion. Example, this guy is an idiot. Well, yeah, it's all, be professional. I always keep it professional, no matter how terrible the buyer. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Cooter says, I don't use global. I only sell a few duplicates and items from my brother's estate, so I'm just keeping it local. TD says, ironically, I get about 1 of 3 for PWE envelopes and about 1 of 4 feedback for more expensive graded cards since I started. Mind-boggling. Very few actually leave feedback. So I do a decent amount of transactions and I get a good amount of feedback. So my last 30 days, it's gone down a little bit. I've had over 1,000 positive feedbacks left in the last month. And I think part of that is, as a seller, I leave feedback automatically once the item is paid for. So once an item is paid for, and you can come back and say, well, what if it's a bad buyer and you leave a positive feedback for somebody that doesn't deserve it? That does happen, but it happens once out of 1,000. I don't even know if I've had a bad buyer, a bad experience of those 1,062. And I guess that's not transact. Actually, I wonder. I can see. Actually, I can calculate the percentage because I leave positive feedback on every one. Let's see if I can see how many I've left in the last 30 days. Let's see. So I've received 1,062. How can I see feedback left for others? Left for others. But it doesn't give me a time period. Doesn't give me a time period. Well, that sucks. I'm sure there's a way to find that out, though. I wonder if I go to the last page, will it tell me when the longest ago was? Oh, shit, that's past month. So that's page 210. How many? So that is a very small percentage if that is the case. That can't be. I have not sold 40,000 items in the last 30 days. Okay, that's 1 through 100. So I'm not sure. Anyway, moving on. Where are we at in the chat? Bo, if eBay came to you and wanted you to be the head of sports card division for eBay, would you take it? If so, we need to make that happen. I'm probably not qualified for that position. I guess it would depend on what's first off, what's the job description? And then second, and this is probably backwards, you'd say, well, what's the pay? Job description and pay. Those are the 1A and 1B. Baseball card curmudgeon, what is up? Good morning to you. Cooter says the item is a Peanuts figure based on his photo request. It's almost like he's trying to produce a knockoff. Oh, interesting. That is, I didn't think of that angle, but that very well could be. Bo's going to be spending the rest of the morning reading the Hobby Hotline private message thread. Whenever you see me like glance over it, that's because a new message has popped up. So, yeah, I'll be spending the rest of the morning. I'll grab a second cup of coffee. I don't feel I need feedback at this point. Another factor in why I don't leave first. When I first started selling again, I felt like I needed that feedback. Yeah, and here's why. Here's why I do it. Part of it is because it makes it more reciprocal. So and I feel like a seller should, because the buyer's end of the transaction, and I actually didn't think like this up until a couple years ago. So me as a seller, a buyer comes and buys a product from me and they pay, they've completed their end of the transaction in my eyes. And I think in many people's eyes, they've completed the transaction. And to me, that was a positive experience. Now, I understand the transaction isn't complete until the buyer receives said item. But what can go, and I know there can be bad experiences, as a seller, but sellers can't leave negative feedback. So if I leave them a false positive, it's not hurting me. The only thing it hurts is you can't punch them with that negative feedback or that false positive feedback you leave. So really it does nothing for me. And here's a very important part for me. It prevents hundreds of emails that say, hey, when are you going to leave me feedback? Hey, when are you going to leave me feedback? Because some people will just nag and nag and nag until that feedback is left. And for me, doing so many transactions, if I automate it, like I don't want to sit down and leave thousands and thousands of positive feedbacks. So if I automate it and it's just like the transaction's done, if they're a bad buyer, so what? It's 1 out of 5,000 that is a false positive. So I would like urge everyone just to leave automatic feedback as a seller. As a buyer, it's different because you have to wait until it's delivered. Is it the right card? Is it, not damaged from the Scotch tape or the shipping tape, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, as a seller, I think it's important just to automate it. Makes life easier for you to leave that feedback and not receive multiple messages on, hey, where's my feedback? Please leave me positive feedback. John says, I'm horrible at leaving feedback. Consider this a blanket apology. As a buyer, I am too. I should probably automate my feedback as positive once it's delivered. But I don't really buy that much on eBay. So it's just kind of, I guess if I'm a repeat buyer from somebody, I'll make sure to leave that feedback. But in most instances, it's like, Henry, I'm behind on feedback 100 from one seller alone. TD says you're forgiven. So that's what I had on eBay feedback. And it's, and I think everybody takes eBay feedback differently. And again, 3-4 years ago, I was kind of like Ken, like, it's no big thing for me. So I'm not going to leave it. I'll leave it here and there. But then once I started to scale up and doing more sales, I think it is important because it does show, I think it's eBay feedback score. The number is a good indicator of how many transactions. And yes, what's the percentage of people that leave feedback on a transaction? Probably like who in the chat mentioned it. Somebody mentioned like TD says one of 4, 1 of 3, 1 of 4. So, do the math and, I've got 1,000 positive feedbacks in the last month. Say it's 1 out of 3, that's about 3,000 transactions per month. So you're a volume seller. It gives you a little more comfort that, okay, he's got in the last 30 days, he's got over 1,000 positive feedbacks, 0 neutrals, 0 negatives. he's a legit seller. Gives you legitimacy, and it makes you stand out. So that's one of the things that I've cared more as I scaled up my eBay store, and then especially when I went full time in October, it means much more to me. So, but I can see it from the eyes of a side hustle, where yeah, it's just my side hustle. You still treat it as a business, but it's not, it's not how you pay the bills. So it's not, A1 importance. So I get it. I get both sides of it, because when I was doing it as a side hustle, it really wasn't as meaningful as it is today. So that's what I had. Thanks for tuning in. Great lively chat. Love it. Fridays are always awesome, probably because it's Friday. If you're in Northern Illinois or Southern Wisconsin, check me out. I'll have my dollar boxes with me at the Northern Illinois Card Show in Rockford. It's at the Rock Church on Harrison Avenue. So I will not be live tomorrow morning. I will not be live Sunday morning, but I will be live on Monday morning at 7 a.m. Central. I'll review Saturday's card show. I'll let you know what the turnout at the card show is. Again, I'm not expecting a great crowd. It's June. There's a lot of stuff going on, activities. People are doing things, and the weather's supposed to be fairly nice. So I don't expect a great turnout, but if I can make a little bit of coin, I'll be happy. And I get to hang out with my card nerds. So that's always a plus. So have a great Friday. We'll chat again on Monday morning. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you then.